Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's this review, we are taking a look at the FD from Discmania. In this review, we're going to first take a look at the profile and the feel, followed by the flight, both lefty and righty perspectives, how I would use the FD on the course, a couple of different plastic types it comes in, and then comparing how those plastic types differ in flight. If that kind of thing is for you, be sure to subscribe and smash that like button. Being a slower fairway driver, the FD has a pretty blunt nose to it, so it's not really going to cut through the air. For the profile, it does have a slight gradual dome, and in almost every plastic that I have the FD in, it does have that consistent gradual dome. It's not pop-topped, but just a nice little consistency to it, so it fills the hand pretty well for backhand, and forehand, it still feels decently comfortable. Also, both the wing and under the rim are pretty rounded, so it doesn't feel like it's digging into your hand. For the flight numbers, speed 7, glide 6, turn 0, and a fade of 1, which on paper should mean that the FD is going to be a very straight flying fairway driver. However, I was interested to see for my slower medium arm if that was going to hold up, and also, as we're going to see later in the video, how the different plastic types affect the flight and the different versatility and shot shapes that you can get. Now, all these shots in the field are being thrown with the S-Line FD, and I have to say this is probably one of the easiest to throw versions of the FD that I have thrown. It's very, very true to its numbers, even for us with slower arms. So if you're looking for a point and shoot fairway driver, something that's going to hold very straight when thrown on a slight hyzer, get the little bit of flip up to flat, hold very straight, and then have a little bit of a finish, this is going to be for you. When thrown flat, you're going to get just a little slightest a bit of a panning turn before it stables up and then has a nice finish. And once you start throwing it on an anhyzer line, it's going to hold these beautiful panning shots. So if you need to get around an object, just throw the FD on the slightest of anhyzer lines with plenty of height, and it is going to hold a panning turn before fighting back towards the end of the flight. And at least in this S-Line plastic, you can get it to hold fairly well on turnovers. Now, it's not going to fully hold the turn the entire way to the ground unless you're a much faster arm, but it's still something if you do get it on a slightly exaggerated anhyzer line, especially if you give it height, it's going to hold a big turn, and then just at the very tail end of the flight, it's going to stable up and try to fight out. Now, when it comes to forehanding the FD, it's going to depend on the plastic that you're using it, as we're going to see a little bit later on. The S-Line being, as I mentioned, kind of the most understable of the plastic types, it is going to have a lot more flip up. It's going to be easier to kind of get over on it, so you have to be careful about not rolling your wrist too much or putting too much on it. But if you give it a good amount of hyzer, you can get it to flip up to flat, hold a gentle turn as it kind of pans before hyzering out, and even if you do put it on an anhyzer line, just be sure to give it some height, and just like with backhand, it's going to try to fight its way back. It's also worth noting that in this S-Line plastic, because it's the most understable, it does not hold up to the wind very well, so both backhand and forehand, I would not use this version if the wind is up. So how do I like to use the FD out on the course? Well, I love it for these forward pushing hyzer shots. Something that you just throw it on a hyzer, not quite getting it up to flat, but just allowing it to keep pushing forward and not having a dumpy finish. Also for just straight lines, throw it on a little bit of a hyzer, let it flip up to flat, ride very straight, and then just a babyest of little hyzers at the very end. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, it's okay for turnovers. It's not going to fully turn over all the way to the ground, but for about 3/4 of the flight, it will do its job, and perfect for hitting those awe-inspiring gaps. Now, if you're still with me here and still watching the video, I did mention a few times earlier on how the different plastic types really affect the flight of the FD and what you can get out of it. Well, the FD comes in a wide variety of different plastic types. I have it in the S-Line, the C-Line, and also the Chroma C-Line as well, the Dark Mall as it's also known. And you, again, can get so many different types of shots, which makes the FD so versatile. Overall, the Chroma C line was probably the straightest. It holds a little bit more torque than the S line, and so because of that I could rip into it a lot harder. It holds very, very straight and then just a nice predictable finish, making it a true point and shoot fairway driver. And because it had just a little bit more stability in it, I could trust it a bit more when it came to forehand. But the king of the stability is the regular C line. This is not an FD. This thing is way more torque resistant, way more overstable, much better for the big arms, which is why I highly recommend the C-Line FD if you're looking to forehand an FD or looking for that extra torque resistance for backhand or wind fighting capabilities. So let's go ahead and take a look at all three of these different plastic types side by side, so that way you can really see the difference in stability between them. The S-Line, you get that nice kind of panning turn in the middle of the flight before it checks up just at the very end, versus the Chroma C-Line, the dark maul, holds a much straighter line, doesn't really get almost any turn at all before it checks up, and has a very similar finish to the S-Line. And then you have the C-Line that starts out straight, checks up way sooner than the other two, and then has a much harsher finish. Again, if you're a slower arm speed player, the S-Line, I love it. It is probably my favorite when it comes to backhand because I can put it on so many different lines. Though if I'm trying to hit a tight gap and I don't want to risk turning anything over, but then also still keeping minimal fade, the Chroma C-Line is great there. And then the C-Line is just the beefy boy. That's the one that for headwinds, forehands, or for just those overstable shots. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the video. The FD, there's an FD for everyone and matching every single arm speed out there, and so many different lines you can put it on. Such a versatile disc, and I love discs like this where you can have 3 different ones in your bag just depending on the plastic, and they're going to do entirely different things and hit the wide spectrum of different shots. Love discs like this, and I highly recommend checking it out. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, it really does help the channel out a lot. Also, for your disc buying needs, be sure to visit GreatLakesDisc.com. Thank you everyone, till the next one, keep banging chains.